everyone, and welcome to the Real Influencers Project. I'm your host, Craig Reynolds, and with me today is one of the greatest team managers of all time, Mr. Erick Bartoldus. Erick, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Smooth.
See? I had to take the first shot.
I gave it back to you.
Man, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you since, I think, Anaheim at the beginning of this year. And before that, it was much, much longer than that. And you are amazing. I'm checking you out on Instagram, and you are still the same guy that you were when I met you when we were young, and you were racing pro, and you were living in Zelwood. Was it Zelwood? Was that where you grew up in Florida?
No, I grew up in Fort Myers. I moved to Apopka, Zelwood area with TC when probably 85, 86, around there.
Okay.
But yeah, I grew up in Fort Myers, and then I moved in with TC, and we became like training, riding buddies, blood brothers, whatever you want to call it. But yeah.
Right. But, yeah. You don't think of one without the other.
I just want to say thanks for having me on, because I've been watching a bunch of these and listening to a bunch of them, and I think your perspective is different than maybe some other podcasts and interviews. So it's pretty fun. So I'm excited to talk with you today.
Well, Erick, I really appreciate that. This has been something that started out as a photo project for me and turned into this, which I love hearing the different stories, because everyone's got a story, whether it's a BMX background, it's a business background, or just in general, people's lives are touched by everybody around them. And I love to hear the different stories on how people became who they are. It's like, it's a documentary,
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people get the opportunity to step back and go, who did help me, or what things got me here? And there's a sense of appreciation and gratitude, I think, that's associated with this that we certainly aren't seeing right now on social media channels or even on the news anymore. So much bickering and fighting.
Yeah.
I'm over it completely.
Yep. I'm with you, brother.
Yes. So let's start off with Florida. You guys are training and racing together. I just said it. I can't think of you without thinking of TC, or vice versa. You guys are super tight. But you grew up in Florida. How did you get into BMX?
Yeah, so I got into BMX because I was at a very early age. My dad went out and bought motorcycles for myself, my brother, and him. So I think this was 1973. The Honda Elsinore just came out, and my dad bought me an MR50 Elsinore. It's a two-stroke, little tiny 50cc two-stroke bike. It was like a little baby of the 125 and 250. So my brother got a 125, CR 125, and my dad got a CR 250. And we would go out, and I lived on Long Island at that point in New York.
Okay.
Go out every Sunday. We would go out riding motocross bikes in out east, we would call it, right? And when I moved to Florida, a couple of years later, my mom and dad got divorced, and I always wanted to race motorcycles. But after the divorce, like, there was no money to do any of that stuff, right? And I had a BMX bike, and I'm like, a BMX track was going to open up in Cape Coral, and I'm like, hey, I want to try this. And my mom's like, okay, I'll bring you out there, And it just started from there. I always wanted to race motocross, but I got into BMX, and that's how it was. And that was April of 1979.
Whoa, that's early on. That's very early. That's earlier than I thought.
Yeah. So my first race was the very first race at Cape Coral BMX, which that track is still going strong in Cape Coral, Florida. And it was the very first race at that track. So it's pretty cool.
And how did you do?
I think I got third. I have the trophy still.
Yes. Excellent.
It doesn't even have a BMX guy on top. It's just got a guy standing up the gold Oscars or something.
Yes, that's awesome. So you obviously continued your career through there. You made it through the amateur ranks, raced pro for a little while. And then when did you really hit the scene of, I guess, popularity, I guess? I don't know. Like, how did that come about? Because in Florida, there's so many good people. Like, you came in an era with the Greg Lanthorns and the Sean Newberrys and the Todd Corbetts and the Shelby James.
Ron Walker, Bernard Gant. So many. Florida was,
yes.
I think, growing up in Florida and racing in Florida, even before I turned pro, I just felt like our state races and what was happening in Florida. I mean, there must have been 18 to 20 tracks easy in Florida.
Right. I remember that.
When I was growing up, we were traveling. There's so many tracks everywhere, right? So the level of talent, I think was very unparalleled to what was happening probably in California.
Mm-hmm.
But it just didn't get that coverage because the magazines were out in California, right?
Sure.
There was NPSA or FBMXA happening in Florida. But our state races and what was happening in Florida was huge. I mean, gigantic, man. So I think that's what led to a lot of those guys, that talent pool going up, because there was so many racers that came from Florida. Not to disparage any other states, but
Oh, no.
Florida was racing all year round. So
Right. Someone once told me that the state races were bigger than the nationals.
they were. Yeah, in the 80s, for sure they were. Yeah.
And is that because
No,
they
like
put
even
more
in
of a-
those state races where the competition was high, the level was high. And so when you went to a national, there was a few fast guys. It wasn't
Right.
like, so
Right.
yeah, the talent pool was huge. And I would probably say still is.
Do you think that that's because there's such a premise, or they carried the state title carried more weight than a national title? And how do you think that?
I think the state races offered a lot to people. You got prizes, and like to hold a Florida state plate, that wasn't like holding a Georgia state plate #1 or I don't know, Ohio state plate #1. You beat the Ronnie Walkers of the world. You beat the Bernard Gants. You beat the Termite Hudsons or the Jessica
Percy Owens and Jessica. Yeah.
all those,
Jessica
right?
Toles, like so many fast people.
Yeah.
You would get there and they were automatically fast. Like I'd come down
Yep.
from Illinois and I'm like, whoa, these dudes are booking right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think that the Florida thing was just huge for me. Just growing up as an amateur, going through, racing through the 80s and missing all the stupid high school things that were happening. I'd come back to school on a Monday and they're like, why didn't you go to the prom or this and that? I'm like, or the football games, right? I'm like, I'm racing BMX, dude.
Right.
I got things to do, right?
Right. Uh-huh. I used to tell people, man, I'm going to see these things in the country that you're still reading about. Like I'm good. I don't miss any of that stuff.
And honestly, like, it's funny. Todd Corbett and I talk about it a lot. It's like, I really kind of feel bad for the youth today because they don't get those chances to do that. Like,
no.
I think it was the '85 World Cup. I had this like beat up old station wagon and World Cup in Tennessee in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
I drove this station wagon that probably got 10 miles to the gallon. It was huge, 1972 Grand Safari station wagon, right? I bought it for $200, and anytime I went to the races in it, it was big and I had to put people in it because that's the only way I can pay for the gas to go to the races, right? I drove this thing to Nashville and back, and the thing shouldn't have made it out of the county in Florida. There was no way. And there's like cell phones or like they didn't even have calling cards back then, like, hey, I'm driving to Nashville. My mom's like, okay, be careful. Like, in 1985. And I was so I was probably 17 or 18, something like that.
Right.
Just taking these adventures, So,
right.
But yeah, I think, for me, I just feel like, kids don't do that stuff anymore. It's too dangerous, or that what would happen if you did this? It's like, do it, like, go for it,
Right. Right. How empowering.
Society doesn't let that happen,
Correct. How empowering is that, or was that from your mom? Like, what a wonderful gift for her to give you. Like, listen, you're going to be safe. Go figure it out. I mean, that's the basis of life, really. It's like having kids, no instruction manual. Guess what? You got to figure it out.
And I think about my kids now. I'm like, if Phoebe, my oldest one, she's up in San Luis Obispo at college, but like, if she's going to go across the country in a car that probably shouldn't make it out of the state, I'd be like, no, you're not.
Exactly. I'm buying you a plane ticket. Shut it down. Right.
Yeah. So anyway, didn't mean to rabbit trail there, but it's such a, those formative years for me. And I think that it really helped me as a human being and personal relations and PR stuff and everything that I do today is because I was allowed to travel at those years where you're being respectful to people and you're staying in people's houses because you were on tour or something, right?
Yes.
And people were so hospitable, but you were respectful to them and you learned how to borrow and say thank you for people. And there was just a really like a common thing happening in BMX then that I think that, really helped shape my career and anything I was doing,
Right. And what a wonderful sport and time as well, because we met so many different types of people growing up.
Yep.
And as you get older, you kind of run into that same person again, and you know how to interact with them,
Yeah.
and be respectful and connect with these people on a one-on-one level, because you've done it so many times
Yeah.
because of the sport. Fantastic
Yep.
sport, right? I love it. It's amazing. So your time in Florida, obviously hugely influential. And then you moved out to California.
Yeah. So I would say probably just going back to maybe to, I think your earlier question, I think probably the biggest influence on me as I started racing BMX, I met Todd Corbett in 1983. Him and Lenny Baticki and Seth Basiri came to a Cape Coral clinic, a Pro-Am clinic, that what they did.
Yeah.
And I met TC then, and we hit it off then, and we became friends, and we've been friends ever since. We ride all the time, mountain bikes together and stuff. So I think for me, being friends with him early on really helped shape my outlook on life. Because when we were in Florida still, I know you want to get to the California thing, but
take your time, man. I love this. This is great.
Yeah. So his dad had a plane crash. His dad was flying planes like really small light aircraft planes, small stuff. So his dad had a plane crash, and it was really, I mean, we weren't living together yet. We were going to. But his dad had a plane crash, and basically what happened was the doctor said, "Hey, does your dad drink at all?" And TC's like, "No, dude, my dad." And the doctor's like, "I need to know right now, because his liver's really damaged, and I need to know if he's even if he's once after work, whatever." He's like, "No, dude, my dad doesn't drink." He's like, "Okay, because it's a life or death situation right now for him,
Yeah.
Cool Dad, which is we call TC's dad, Cool Dad. He actually pulled through it, but it got TC thinking wow, I never thought about my dad not drinking. So for us, I mean, he was probably, I think 15 at the time. And it just got us, I was in high school still when that happened, or no, I was just out. And it was funny because we started this E-team thing.
I remember that.
And it was just about, it wasn't it was like the straight edge thing, right? So we just were, our whole thing is we wanted to influence kids that you can have a really great time without being affected by any kind of drugs or alcohol, right? So that was that was kind of our motive. We were acting like idiots all the time because we were idiots, not because we were messed up on some alcohol or drugs or whatever,
Right.
That started the E-team thing, but for me, that really shaped my my core, my foundation of who I am, because I still have letters in my garage, dude, from all these people. When we started the E-team thing, we just kept it going. We made hats and headbands and all this stuff. But these kids would write letters to me just going, "Man, you guys have affected my life. Thank you for being the example," and all this stuff. And I'm like, I probably thought that was cool back then, and it was. But man, now you think about shaping somebody's life, that's huge, dude.
Right.
It blows me away that I could affect somebody's outlook on life if they come to a fork in the road and they take the right turn. That's awesome, dude.
Yep. That's a huge, I think, testament to your character as well, and not just coming up with this E-team, but look, this is how I'm living it, and this is what I do. What a wonderful example to lead, right? What a wonderful way to be an influencer yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was trying to be an influencer at that time, to influence people for the right things.
Yep.
But only because I wanted to do the right thing, not because I wanted to, influence people to whatever. I just like, hey, if you take that turn, it's a dead end. If you take this turn, at least you can think clearly and make intelligent choices and all that stuff. So yeah, I think just going back to Florida and TC and him being a huge part of my life back then. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, you and Cool Dad did a huge thing in my life, when I probably needed it,
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
Yeah. Todd's a really cool dude, man. He's a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
So then did you guys move to California together, or was there a stop in between Florida and California?
No, we basically, it's funny. I want to say TC was in between Jolly Rancher and maybe Cyclecraft at that time, or maybe he was on Cyclecraft. And we came to Christmas Classic, right after Christmas. And we're like, hey, we need to move to California, dude. The only way, you know, Glenn Poplowski, he had a room set up with Glenn to move out to California. He's like, hey, dude, I'm moving out to California. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Because we're living together, right? And he's like, well, you're coming with me. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have any money. He's like, well, come on, I'll lend you money, whatever you need. Let's go. So he packed up his little golden nugget, they called it, that the car that he wanted, the grocery store. And we
wait, you want a car at a grocery store?
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But yeah,
no way.
Him and his girlfriend, I forgot which store it was. Maybe it was Albertsons. I don't know. But anyway, they took a whole, they basically had a Chevy, I think it was called a Chevy Sprint. And they took the whole pack of you know, filled us out to win this car. And they filled the whole pack out, all of them, stuffed them in the box, right?
No way.
I got him a couple months later. And he's like, hey, this is XYZ. You won a car. And he's like, what? So, yeah, he won a car. And he drove that thing. It was a 3-cylinder Chevy Sprint.
Get out of here.
The wheel, I think it had 200,000 miles on it. But, yeah, he drove the wheels off that thing, dude.
Oh,
but
my
we
gosh.
Car and my Toyota pickup truck. We loaded his car up. We loaded my pickup truck up, and we moved to California. And we arrived in California January 1st, 1988. And I ran out of gas. I ran out of money in Phoenix. I'm like, dude, I don't have any more money for gas. He's like, here's $300. And then we got to California. He went to Pavlovsky's house, and I stayed with Gork and Spike Jones and Mark Lumen in their apartment.
Right.
Spike told me to get out.
No, he did not.
Yes, he did. He kicked me out. Spike Jones kicked me out of their apartment. He didn't kick me out. He's like, hey, Biggie, it's time for you to go get an apartment, dude. Because there was like 4. I was living on their couch. There's like 4 dudes there.
Yeah.
I think it was me, Gork, Spike, and Mark Lemon. It was their place.
Yeah.
And I was on the couch, and there was miscellaneous people like Greg Grosso and all these different people would stay there. And it was time. I wore out my welcome. But anyway, I got a job at Seattle Bike Supply in Carson.
Okay.
And so I got a job, and I stayed on their couch. And then me and Tony Sheets got an apartment in Lomita together, and he worked at Seattle Bike Supply too. So
really, I didn't know Sheets went out there. I had no clue he went out there.
He came out to California for probably about 2 years, and then he went back to Florida.
Got it. Interesting.
Yep.
So were you still racing at this time, or had you started to make that transition into team manager? Because that's a massive part of your existence, man.
Yeah. So I went. So we came out the 1st of January '88. And then I was racing pro, turned A pro. I got a national number in '89. I think I got national number 20, AA pro, which was like, well, that's pretty rad. AA pro class was pretty thick back then, but
dude, for sure.
The guy that, you know, if I made the main, I would probably get 6th through 8th in the pro thing, you know, unless it was early on with the B pro thing. I would probably be in the mix of probably 2nd through 5th, something in there, but. But yeah, I turned AA, and then I in the end of '89 I got a job at GT Bicycles. Todd hired me there because I was riding for Auburn and TC and that whole connection. Todd got a job at GT, and like, hey Biggie, you know, you ran the tour for Auburn for so long, you've been on tour forever, you'd be the perfect guy for this job. So drove that big yellow submarine around for a couple of years. Then we got the WD-40 rig, this Video Showtime Theater. That's what we called it.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah. And so I was just driving for GT and doing the marketing stuff. And then in 1983, 84, Todd Huffman said, hey, we're going to take Powerlight to the next level. We need a guy to kind of run it, you know? And I said, hey, I'd love to, you know, I would love to do it. And I inherited, I think, Corky Gainsford, Heather Bruns, Dwight Tardy was on that team. A guy named Jack Doherty out of Phoenix actually ran the team at the time. It was kind of like a half-baked effort, but GT was going to put some more money in the back of Powerlight. And so, yeah, I inherited I can't remember all the guys on that team, but those are the ones that are kind of in my mind, you know.
Well, the 3 that you named are huge.
Yeah. No, it's cool because, you know, Corky, obviously, he was just an incredible, like, what a crazy, one of the things I really appreciated about being a team manager was like this crazy diverse kind of people that come together, right? Corky was this guy that out of Washington that his single child and his parents he's just a normal kid, and he got straight A's all through school, all the way through high school, right? This is the one of the things I remember about Corky. And his parents said, if you get straight A's all the way through high school, we're going to buy you any car you want. Any car you want. So he gets straight A's all the way through high school. And he's like, yeah, just a Ford Focus is fine or something. It's fine. Dude, that's the kind of guy Corky is, right?
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. So then, guys like Dwight Tardy on the team, which, him and his grandpa, Willie, was just what a characters, just unbelievable. And then Dwight went on to be this great big football star,
Yeah, dude, where did he play? Did he go to Michigan? I don't know where he went. I can't remember where he played college ball.
I don't remember. I don't either. Yeah. But he was a pretty big football dude, for sure.
Yes, no doubt. It's just talking about those two families. Such a huge, diverse crowd in BMX. I'm telling you, it teaches you so many life skills. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, I remember Dwight was probably 8 years old, and Corky was a drummer. Still is.
Still is. A really good drummer.
Yeah. And we were up at his house, and Dwight was like, 8 years old or something, and playing the drums. And recently, Corky actually posted that video of Dwight playing his house. Dude, it's classic. But
really?
That diverse, here's this black kid that doesn't fit. Yeah, he doesn't. What are you doing at this hard rock drummer kid's house, right?
Right.
BMX. That was the commonality, and that just brought us all together.
Yep. It oversees boundaries, right? Boundaries that people put in place. Like everyone's a friend, everyone's together because we have got this common tie that binds, and that's the beauty of it, man. That's the best thing about our sport, hands down. Not to say there aren't any faults in it, but man, it's a kick-ass sport, no doubt. So you inherit this team, and then you quickly start picking people left and right that are next level kids that you're nurturing and you're supporting. How did you see that? Where do you feel that you got that eye from to see that talent?
I would say probably from just watching races and watching good people versus bad people, and kind of having the premonition of hey, this is a good dude, or this guy's got heart. He might not be the fastest dude, but he's got heart and he's going to try. And that's kind of going to override some of the other stuff,
Yeah.
I think just racing all those years and seeing a lot of races and watching a lot of races, I kind of had an eye for that, and just being around a ton of different people. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think that premonition, and just, again, I always wanted to win. We always want to win. Right. But for me, I wanted to make sure that as I'm building a team, that it's got to be the right dude on the team or the right girl. Right. It has to be that, because you're traveling with somebody and you're all the time traveling like we did. I mean, we were probably 18 weekends, 20 weekends of the year, maybe.
Yeah, more than that, I think.
Meeting at airports and doing all this stuff. And my thing was, when we would come back from a race, I would film all the races. I still have them all on tape. I need to actually get that stuff, put it on disc or something. But
that's gold.
Dude, I have from when I had a gigantic VHS tape. I would film all the races from the Mike Luna days from the early 90s on GT.
No way.
Dude, on tape. All the way through the Powerlight stuff. So when I became Powerlight team manager, when we got done with the races, a lot of the other teams everybody go their separate ways. But I'm like, hey, let's go get ice cream. We're going to go watch the races. Or we'll go get dinner. We're going to watch the races. So I plug in the back of the hotel TV and we watch every race. And so for me, there was a visual thing, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. Dude, you told me you pedaled there. Look, you didn't. You could have totally got another couple of pedals. And just the visual, you telling somebody versus them seeing it is huge. So we would always, and the other guys on the team, because they're sitting there, everybody's watching everybody's races, everybody's critiquing it. So you can't get out of it, right?
Right.
Huge for us because, again, we bonded as a team. We were I want to say that we were one of the real teams, because when we went out to dinner together. We went back and watched the races together. So I think that's one of the things that no matter who was on the team, we bonded because that's what we did. And if there was somebody on the team that didn't like to do any of that stuff, because there's a couple of picks through the years what I had on there that I made a wrong decision, but it weeded itself out quickly. So.
Gotcha. It's pretty amazing. So not only were you the team manager and making sure people's flights were together and everyone got to where they needed to be and taking them there, you were a coach.
Well, I was a coach too, but also back at the office during the week, I was a brand manager. So we're coming up with, when we came up with the cockpit design, some of that stuff that was happening, like, the whole pushing the whole Powerlight Orange thing to all the different products that we made through the 90s at Powerlight. That was me and the product manager going, hey, we need to do this. We need to do this. And then Penny Westman, which was the main sales lady at GT, she was a gigantic Powerlight fan, like everybody, there was GT and Dyno, which was the gigantic, juggernaut.
Yes.
But Powerlight, which everybody loved. It was like the redhead stepchild, like everybody wanted to see succeed. So, if you didn't want GT, there was Powerlight. This bike's rad, So, and it wasn't an alternative. It was a legit alternative, right?
Right. No kidding. I mean, I think the racing side of that is what made it so desirable too.
Yeah. Yeah.
You saw this
character of the brand, right?
Yes, absolutely. No doubt. Everything. And I do think that when you think about the firm, I don't necessarily plug Powerlight into that because I feel like you guys were your own entity.
Yeah, I think we were. We TC and I were not great buddies through those years because as Bill Nelson gave the reins over to him, we would race each other,
Yeah.
And Richard Long told me in the early years, he's like, hey, go beat GT, do whatever you can to beat them. And so when I first took that job, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do.
Whoa.
He did that. It was pretty rad, dude. Richard Long, when he was still around, when that happened, it didn't happen often when he was still alive, but he gave me kudos. It was pretty rad. He was an influential guy too. Richard Long was, and really influenced a lot of people's lives. I mean, I think, taking a bicycle company out of somebody's garage and making it probably, I would argue, the third biggest bicycle company in the world at the time.
Right.
And just having the vision for competition and pushing the sport to another level, and just all bicycles really as he got older. It was just amazing. So.
Yeah, I think our sport of BMX took a major hit when we lost him. I think he was the driving force behind a lot of stuff that might not get enough credit for.
Yeah, for sure. I would almost say, we at that time too, GT bicycles had a gigantic mountain bike team, and mountain bikes were blowing up, right? And we were doing a lot of different things in mountain biking too. And in '96, when he passed away, the Olympics were in Atlanta, and we had this crazy super bike for track bike that we built that the Olympic team was riding. So
I remember that.
BMX that he wanted to take bicycles like GT to the next level, it was a special time. The 90s were a special time for me to be at GT. And I took some college courses, but I never went to college and graduated any kind of a degree. But I feel like, racing in the 80s and in the 90s, working at GT, I got a gigantic education that, it's real world application that you learn and you take with you, and everybody that you work with that influences you, you're like, there's guys that I've worked with at GT that have gave me a skill set and things that I do now today that I'll never forget, and that's different than probably being at school. Like, it's hard for me to sit down and learn and write and stuff, but real application where it's rubber meets the road, I get that pretty good.
Right. Well, I mean, school isn't for everybody, right? And the influencers that taught you have been huge in your life. And I'm sure, and I want to get to that in a second, a bunch of that is carried over into where you are now at Yoshimura and where you were before at Answer. But before we do that, you almost bought Powerlight, right?
Yeah. So when, funny story, but I just want to mention this. This is crazy because in 1998, Schwinn took over or bought GT because it was just like in a downward spiral, and Schwinn purchased GT. And from 98 to 2000, GT was the redheaded stepchild. Like, it was seriously like, they hated GT. In my opinion, it was like Schwinn and GT's down in Southern California, because Schwinn was in Colorado and GT was down in Southern California, and we're like the rogue nation kind of thing. And Schwinn was the big bicycle brand. Like, we're going to take over the world again. So I think we were always looked at as like these bastard children down in Southern California. So anyway, back in 2001, when 9/11 hit, there was a bankruptcy proceeding, right? And so in Colorado, in the court, on September 11th, GT was in court to go through a bankruptcy, and Huffy was supposed to acquire GT, and they were going to sell GT back to about 5 investors, and everything was going to go on as normal. Well, that didn't happen. Pacific Bicycle bought GT and basically said, we're going to turn it into a big box brand. And everybody, the 70 people that were still at GT were like, uh-oh, this didn't happen the way it was supposed to happen. So just going back real quick, on September 11th, that happened. So everything stopped, right? So we're all in this limbo for 2 weeks. There's no planes flying. All this stuff's happening, right? So 2 weeks later, that whole Pacific Cycle thing happened. And so there was about 70 of us still at GT at that time. We were across the street from Oakley. And that happened because basically these 5 investors were supposed to buy GT, and things were going to happen, and things were going to, be kind of back to somewhat normal on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Well, Pacific Bicycle bought it. And that's when Doug Luden and I, which was the product manager at the time, were like, hey, we want to buy Powerlight. Because
I didn't know Doug was part of that. That's awesome.
Yeah, Doug was the product manager at Powerlight at GT for probably 2 years, maybe 3. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so we were trying to find investors, and we were trying to talk to the lawyers and the people that own Pacific Cycle. Like, hey, we know you want GT and Schwinn for the brand names, but Powerlight doesn't mean anything to anybody at a big box store. Like, we would like to buy it. There's probably $260,000, $280,000 of inventory.
Mm-hmm.
We'll buy the inventory. We'll pay a little extra for the name. And they came back with some millions of dollars figure what they thought Powerlight was worth. And we're like,
whoa,
me? You're kidding me, right? Oh no, this is worth like $7 million. Is like, are you kidding? So anyway, they kept the name. We couldn't get it. And that dream kind of fell apart. And then I got a call from Don Maeda, which ran Transworld Motocross at the time. He's like, hey,
mm-hmm.
just from riding motocross at the tracks, I knew him. And he's like, hey, we're looking for an editor. We're going monthly. And I know you love the sport, and you know a lot of motocross guys, and product. We'd like to bring you on. So I got in the motorsports industry like that, being an editor at Transworld Motocross.
Amazing transition.
Yeah, that was probably within a couple of months of not the Powerlight thing not happening.
Wow. How many people walked across the street and went to Oakley?
I don't remember. Not many. Maybe Steve Blick, which was at GT. Maybe he was already at Oakley at that time. Not a ton. Not a ton.
That's gotta be a hard door to get into anyway.
Yeah, it was Oakley was just a gigantic, and still is, but was a gigantic machine back then for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. So the transition into motorsports or into motorcycles, was that a big step away from bikes, or do you feel like it was a pretty similar situation?
I feel like it was completely parallel to what I was doing. So riders, mental attitudes, the way they race, just being at the magazine. I was at the magazine from 01 to 03, and then I went to work for Answer. And then when I went to work for Answer, same thing, just like completely parallel what I was doing. So it was soft goods, which is motocross apparel.
Yep.
And I was also doing Pro Taper. So Pro Taper was all handlebars and materials and doing all that stuff. I'm like, I've done this my whole life, just in another industry, right?
Right.
So
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool transition for me. Because
you still got to work with the riders too, which was great.
What's that?
Because you still got to work with the riders too.
Yeah, and I knew guys like Jeremy McGrath, because all through the GT years, and Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Button, a lot of these guys, because all through the GT years, I would sponsor those guys for bicycles. Like, we were the first bicycle company, maybe not the first. Felt was probably in there, but we were the bicycle company that would sponsor motocross guys for BMX, right? Like, and then mountain bikes too. And like, you know, we were kind of the ones that kind of, I think, pushed that whole, now everybody's riding a bicycle, right? That rides motocross. But back then, you know, Jeremy was huge on the BMX side for us. And so I knew those guys. And so to transition into the motocross thing, like I already had a foot in the door and I was riding motocross and I was doing all that stuff on the spare time. So it was an easy transition for me. And then as I transitioned into products at Answer with Answer and Pro Taper, that was easy for me too, because it's passionate about like looking good and hard parts, you know?
Right. And how much influence did you have in sponsoring the riders on that side of it as well, and picking the right people again?
That was it. That was all me. Yeah. So when I went to Answer, I was doing the contracts for Suzuki and Yamaha to run our products. I was doing my first big contract at Answer was Ernesto Fonseca to run our stuff. I'm like, when I first went there, I'm like, it's funny how I got the job at Answer. I went and sat in front of these guys at Tuckeraki. There's probably 10 people there. They're like, they flew me out after a couple of interviews. They flew me out and they're like, basically said, hey, what do we need to do with Answer? And there's 10 people staring at me, right?
Oh,
Said, honestly, the brand's dead. We really need to revive it. We need to start from scratch. That doesn't mean anything to anybody. I thought they were going to kick me out of the room. So one of the first things I did, I'm like, we need a high profile, good dude to represent and to bring Answer back from the bottom of the barrel. And for me, that was Ernesto Fonseca. He was on Honda at the time. And I'm like, there's not a better dude. So I hired Ernesto Fonseca. So as a brand manager, I would oversee the designs of the gear. I would oversee the packaging and all the stuff we were doing for Pro Taper. And I would do contracts and work with those riders. And it was a lot of hats. But again, it was something that I was used to coming from the bicycle side.
right. And you said a lot of hats. I think growing up, we had to do it all because it was such a small sport. And now to do it all is like normal. When I'm not doing it all, it's kind of weird. It's like, wait, someone else is supposed to do that? I can do it. I got it. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. And that's even to this day what I do. And it's like a lot of hats, just running the social media side of Yoshimura, just from advertising to just all the stuff that we're doing. I'm used to doing all that stuff because I wear a lot of hats, and I don't know if you want to transition into Yosh now, but
that's great.
But anyway, I don't know. We can get there if you want, or
go. Let's go. Get it. Let's hit it. Let's hear Yoshimura. How did you get out of Answer to Yoshimura?
Yeah, so I was out of work for probably almost 2 years. Went from Answer. When I went from Answer, I went to a company called the 7 Group, and that was basically 661, Sunline. There was Eddie Cole had a bunch of brands, and he basically hired me away from Answer to really run his brands. So went up there, and that lasted for about a year and a half. Some venture capital came in and just crashed the thing.
Wonderful.
And then I went to work for an online bicycle company, and because a guy that was at GT was there as a product manager, he's like, "Hey, dude, we need you to do the marketing. You'll kill it for us." So this guy was an online bicycle company that he's like had all these grandiose ideas of doing stuff. We hired about 10 people at the time. By the time about a year later, and basically didn't count the cost, and basically said, "I'm shutting this thing down." So after that, I was out of work for about 2 years, and then the Yoshimura thing happened, which was pretty crazy because I had been looking for a job forever. It has been crazy. It was after obviously the '08 crash thing that happened with financial, and so people were really reluctant to bring somebody on board, especially an older guy that might be as sharp as a younger guy. But I had a friend that worked at Yoshimura, and he's like, "Hey, they actually created a position for me. I was looking for a job. They didn't have a position, and they're like, 'Hey, we need to bring this guy on board.'" And I found this out after the fact, but yeah, that was in 2013, the beginning of 2013. I started working at Yosh.
Really? And what is your role there? What is the job they created?
Yeah, so at the time it was communications director, but it turned into, again, a lot of hats. That wasn't all the things I did. And I quickly learned that this is a perfect place for me to wear a lot of hats like I've done in the past. And Yeah, so I'm the marketing director now, and I've been that for the last probably, I don't know, 6 years, something like that. So
And when I see you at the
I do everything from helping Yusaku build pedals to taking out the trash to closing the doors and whatever it is, right? So whatever it is. And
it's funny.
There's such a, again, it brings me full circle because I walk in that building and we have about 100, 110 employees, somewhere around there. And we're building stuff from raw materials. So I walk in that building,
Whoa.
right? And it's the same thing when I would walk into GT. You smell the oil on the metals. You hear saws cutting tubing. It's just like GT was, dude. So it brings me way back into this full circle thing. And I love working there. It's just a unique company that has a very unique spot in power sports, and that it's not like the other brands that we compete against. We're a very unique thing in how we do it. And I really appreciate that about the vision of the company and how it's ran. It's pretty cool.
Where do you see yourself going from here?
Dude, I don't know. I honestly, I have fun every day of my life, and that's kind of my goal. That's what I do, and as I go through, I try to really remember to, and that's one of the things I've been telling people, like, as this whole coronavirus thing's been happening, I try to, and as a company and as a person, I try to remember that when I get wound up, and I get passionate and emotional about things, I really try to take myself back and remember that this is a weird time we're all living through. Everybody's being put through a lot of stress in their own different levels, and realize that there's different stress levels and different things pushing on people. So remember that, right? Whether you're a purchasing person at a company or you're running into somebody pumping gas, remember that everybody's going through the unprecedented times. So be careful about how you treat people, right? People, I think, we mentioned about before we got on the call about social media and how crazy it is now, right? I think we all need to be careful about how we interact with each other, and how, whether it's political or whatever, it's kind of silly to be up in arms about stuff, because I think the levels are very high right now, and people are very agitated and emotional. And I think we all just need to take a step back and realize that, do we really need to act like that? I think we really need to be kind to each other. So take a step back, take a breather. And if somebody can't come into work because they're sick, well, then we'll just be flexible. Or we can't ship that thing till next week, then, well, that's what it is right now, right? But to be crazy and worked up about it, what are you going to do? It's just the card we've been dealt. So that's kind of the thing that I remember this year. And I think, he's talking about, like, what are we going to do? Am I going to do in the future? I think it's hard to predict, right? What are you going to do? But I think if you keep that goal of having a good time and just being passionate and loving what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? So that's that's where I'm at. And I've really just been blessed to have a lot of great people around me to guide me and influence me to be at the position that I am. And I try to really, I don't do it all the time, and I wish I thought about it more, but I need to be thinking about influencing other people too. I have a couple of people in my life I'm kind of like a mentor to. Not, hey, I mentor you, but it's in that role. I hang out with some younger dudes that I try to guide, and it's just fun. So I think when I lay my head down on the pillow at night, I think I'm happy and I'm a blessed man, for sure.
Well, there is no better way to end this interview. That was awesome. For all the people out there that you sponsored in the BMX world, from the Donnie Robinsons to the Mario Sotos to, so many good people that you influenced. You were an influence on me with the way that you presented yourself and how well that you took care of your people. That was big for me, and I always wish I was a part of that. So thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything that you did in the sport. You got a beautiful family, and it's awesome to have had you on today, and it's awesome to be able to say that you're my friend.
Oh, that's cool. I appreciate that, Greg. And I think, honestly, like, for me, like, looking to you too, like, you were one of those pros that ran through the 80s and 90s that always presented himself in the right way too. And same, great ditto back at you, man. You guys, you did it really, really well. And for all the companies that you represented, to doing your own thing with Reynolds Racing, all that stuff, pretty cool, man.
Well, man, I appreciate that. Thank you. I really do.
Thanks for having me on today, too. I appreciate it.
Anytime, man. You want to come back at any point, anytime, you just let me know and I'll fire this thing right up.
Right on.
So if you guys like what you're seeing, please make sure that you subscribe on YouTube. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, subscribe there as well. Erick, thanks again for your time, buddy. And I will look forward to seeing you sometime soon.